Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
First tonight, a new study says that lots of time in front of the television can mean very bad things for your health. Joining us now is Dr. Thomas Vento with the Mercy Medical Center. Doctor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
This was the Journal of the American Heart Association.
The journal is called Circulation, and it is a journal of the American Heart Association.
What did they find?
Essentially, it was an Australian study that found they followed people over a 6-year period, and that with increased TV viewing, they found an increase in overall mortality, increase in cardiovascular mortality, and increase in cancer death as well.
So pretty straight correlation there.
Pretty much, yeah, because they did exclude for all other risk factors, including smoking, previous history of heart disease, and even, believe it or not, exercise.
We should probably point out they didn't specifically look at public television.
No, not public television, definitely not.
You know, this doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, does it? I mean, you have to figure if you're going to be sitting in front of the television for 10 hours a shift, it's not going to be great for you.
Right, exactly. And I think the difference, though, is that what they looked at was not just sitting in front of the TV for 10 hours or 8 hours even. They looked at the fact that even people who would exercise on a routine basis and follow a healthy diet and are non-smokers, if they spent 4 hours in front of the TV per night as opposed to the people in the same category who spent 2 hours, they would have a 46% increased risk of overall mortality and 80% increased risk of cardiovascular mortality.
Wow, so those are people who exercise.
Yeah, because they did exclude for all those factors.
I was going to ask whether it was being in that sedentary position, whether that was harmful because of the absence of being active, or if somehow it was harmful itself, like something bad was happening to you while you were sitting there.
Well, and it's not necessarily because of the TV, so it's not like radiation coming off the television or anything, but it is the act of being sedentary and of just sitting there not doing anything, the lack of muscle contraction. And basically, when you're sitting watching TV, you're burning as much calories as you would be with sleeping. So by not doing any activity, the blood glucose homeostasis is affected, and essentially you're just increasing your risk overall.
You wonder if it's different for people who have sedentary jobs. If you're in front of a computer 8 hours a shift, was it in the study, or did we just guess?
The study author actually talked about it recently on NPR, and it was interesting. You know, we go from a lifestyle where we drive in the car for an hour or so, sit at the office for 8 hours, and then sit in front of the TV for 4 hours. So they specifically studied TV, but it's really any sitting or any being sedentary. So whether you're in front of the computer or in front of the TV or even reading a book, they encourage you to move more and move often.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about this study or your health in general, you can give us a call at the number on the screen or email us by visiting our website at mpt.org. So I suppose there's an obvious answer. What do we do about this?
Well, I think one of the things you can do is just kind of, if you don't have TiVo or something like that, you watch commercials still, get up during the commercials and move around. The other thing is, you know, do some of your household chores at the same time. Folding laundry, you know, if you have a treadmill, just walk on the treadmill. You know, any kind of activity you can do, and getting up intermittently. They're actually conducting a study, the same authors currently, wherein they have people sit for a 7-hour period, but every 20 minutes they get them up for 2 minutes at a time.
Really, the interesting part of this is what you said about people who exercise, that they still have this same issue. So even if you're hitting the gym, you need to cut your time on the couch.
And I mean, you can watch TV all you want as long as you're doing something while watching it. So if you spend 4 hours watching TV while you're walking on a treadmill, completely different story. And I think you don't have any increased risk at all.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about different jobs. I mean, I sit behind a desk a lot. You're in a general medical practice. So you're walking around this room to that room. Does that count as the sort of activity you want?
Yeah, I think in the profession I'm in, where we're kind of bouncing from one place to the next, even though we do sit in the room with the patients, we're getting up and down and moving around quite a bit. So the lack of staying sedentary for a period of time is what's beneficial. The study really shows a marked difference between that 2-hour window and then the 4-hour window. So unless I was sitting with a patient for 2 hours, which doesn't often happen, we're not going to be an increased risk.
Do you end up talking to patients about stuff like this in a general checkup, any particular age group?
You know, I see people of all ages, kids and adults, and I do try to talk to them about increasing their level of activity. And, you know, any small level counts. Up until this study, I hadn't actually talked to them about being sedentary completely. I usually say, try not to be sedentary, spend 30 minutes on the treadmill or exercise bike every day. But now I'm actually going to be starting to talk to patients more about even during their downtime, they should start doing something, whether it's getting up, walking around, or dancing while they watch TV, or anything like that.
Yeah, this time of year especially, everybody's thinking about their weight, too, so a little extra activity has got to be a good thing.
Yep, definitely.
The other thing that happens when we're sitting on the couch, and guilty as anybody else, is we tend to eat.
Right, and that's another thing that was noticed in the study, is that we have a tendency to increase in our snacking behavior.
So, you know, the other question is whether a little bit of inactivity is a good thing. I mean, there's people out there, and I'm sure you know them, and it's 24/7 stress. You wonder, maybe, you know, they could use half an hour of just sitting in front of the television.
I think anything under an hour would be considered okay, but once you start increasing that sedentary time past a certain point, you're increasing your risk.
And again, that hour should be public television.
Public television, yes.
Absolutely. Was there any difference with a study being conducted in Australia? Apparently, we Americans watch a lot more TV than others.
A little bit, yeah. The average Australian home watches about 3 hours of TV per day, and Americans can watch up to 8 hours. They did find some differences in socioeconomic status. Lower household incomes were associated with higher television watching time. But, you know, I think, you know, the American lifestyle of up to 8 hours, I don't know where people find 8 hours to watch TV, but if we're watching that much TV, we're certainly at a much higher risk.
And even with all the other distractions out there, the Internet, video on the Internet and so forth, the amount of time that people spend watching TV keeps going up.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know where everybody finds the time.
I don't have those hours.
Let's take a phone call. Judy in Baltimore County. Judy, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Okay, I had two questions. One was, if you're moving around all day or you're doing something active, it seems to me like at night you just want to sit down and collapse in front of the TV for a couple hours. And the other thing I think you answered was eating while watching TV, because I know people have the potato chips sitting there and the cashews, et cetera. So they were my two questions.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, as far as eating while watching TV, obviously, you know, replace those snacks with carrots and fruit. You know, have plenty of fresh fruit available at all times. And if you eat a whole apple, you know, I challenge you to try and eat something after that, because most people will be full after that. And as far as, you know, relaxing when you get home, I think that's fine. And, you know, sitting down for 30 minutes to finish direct connection and then getting up and doing some activity. If you want to keep watching TV, that's fine, but as long as you keep getting up and moving about.
How intense does your moving about have to be? I mean, some people prefer to take a walk. Some people would rather go to the gym and have an aggressive workout.
Well, when we're talking about exercise, we would talk about 30 minutes of aerobic, you know, where your heart is racing and you're sweating. But as far as the study goes, you know, just non-sweaty exercise, they call it, where you're just getting up and moving. You know, even ironing clothes. You're standing up, you know, and ironing. That's enough mobility of getting your muscles contracting and moving.
Yeah. You know, the insidious thing about so many television shows is that they're designed, with good reason, to hook you in, to come back for the next episode of American Idol to find out how this person did or who got kicked off the island or whatever. So we'll have part 2 of this discussion on our next, no, just kidding. But they intentionally do that. So you have to be conscious of that, I think, and fight back against it.
Correct, yeah. And if you could pick your top 2 or 3 favorite shows and stick to just them. You know, the study, again, is not pointing out stop watching TV altogether, because, again, it's even just playing the computer games or video games, or, like I said, even reading if you're sitting for a period of time.
Yeah, I know your practice is in Reisterstown and general practice. When you see folks come in, how healthy is the average person these days? I mean, do you think the average person coming in for a checkup could use a suggestion or two?
I definitely think they can, and I think most people are just looking for somebody, you know, with an MD after the name to tell them what they already know, whether it's eating healthy or exercising. And, you know, most of it is about finding time in our day. And oftentimes when I recommend the 30 minutes of exercise, I tell people there's got to be one show in the day that you could do without. Spend that on the exercise bike or the treadmill. So.
Great. Let's take another call. Rudy in Baltimore County. Rudy, thank you for the call. You're on.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to suggest that the WE program is a great program for exercising and watching the program and golf and many other exercises you can do with your kids, with friends, and keep going and have a good time.
That's a great endorsement. Thanks for the call.
He's got a good point. And unless you're playing like some of my wife's former middle school students did, who would sit on the couch and do the bowling. But, you know, my daughter and I play the bowling on the Nintendo all the time, and it is good exercise. Well, not necessarily exercise, but you're up and you're moving. You're not sitting. You're swinging your arm. You're moving your legs.
And the ironic thing is that you're staring at a television while you're
Exactly. So that points out it's not the TV.
Well, don't blame the television. All right, Dr. Thomas Vento is with the Mercy Medical Center. Thank you very much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.